We're going to get started here. Good morning, everyone. My name is Donna Berger. I'm the Director of the Office of Traffic Safety with the Department of Public Safety and one of the TZD co-chairs. And I'd like to welcome you this morning to the January Partners TZD Breakfast, which we will be presenting on our Driver Distraction Survey, the first of its kind in Minnesota, which we're very excited about. Mike Rugani, who is the manager of the Research and Evaluation Unit within the Office of Traffic Safety, will be presenting on the subject. He will discuss the results of the distracted driving survey. Last year, data was collected on the prevalence of driver distraction, types of distractors while driving, in the United States. I do have a few TZD related announcements first. We have 8 TZD regional we have dates been sent out on those, and they're also the dates are out on the TZD website. So please look for announcements later this month for registering for the workshops. And as I said, you can maybe plan your schedule around and go out to the TZD website and check on those dates. We also have the Statewide Tcd Conference scheduled. That's going to be back in Duluth this year, November 16th and 17th. Everyone always loves going to Duluth, so mark your calendars for that as well. Stakeholder breakfast. We've changed things up a little bit. We're going down to 2 stakeholder breakfasts a year now, one in January and one in July. Reason being, then we have all of our workshops that are in the spring, and we have our statewide conference in the fall, so that way we have something going every quarter. So we're going to try that out and see how that goes. And of course, we always encourage anyone to interact about TZD on social media using TZD on Twitter and like us on Facebook. I still don't tweet, so I have a hard time explaining what that is. I know I should. Also an update on the current fatality count for 2015. We did a news release out of the Department of Public Safety yesterday. We're currently at 398, preliminary number, and the projection is at 405. Now, before this, we had 4 years under 400. That's extremely disappointing. It's going in the wrong direction. So it's just a call to action for all of us to refocus again more and more on what we can do to prevent traffic fatalities and serious injuries on our roads. And of course, the last year's date came in at, or last year's number for 2014 was 361. We know had an extremely good year. So it's very upsetting to see it go up that much more. So normally we go around and do introductions, but we just have too big of a room for that today. And so what we're going to ask when we get back to the question and answers at the end, we ask that you introduce yourself and what organization you're representing, and we're just going to keep it at that. And we're going to now move on to Mike Rugani in his presentation. Please welcome him. One more announcement. So you're not distracted, please turn your phones down to silence.
Good morning, everybody. I know that many of you here, this topic is very timely, very important. The kind of the hot button issue of the day, maybe for some of you, maybe for all of you. I get to present today because Hal Campbell couldn't be with us, so I feel very fortunate to do that. And it's good to see a lot of familiar faces out there today. Some of you, even friendly faces. So just to kind of give a little background about what we're talking about here today. Donna had mentioned that this was a first of a kind in Minnesota. And actually, as far as we know, this is a first of a kind for the nation to be looking at distraction as holistically as we did. The purpose was to, as Donna mentioned again, assess the prevalence of these behaviors on Minnesota roads and to generate baseline data for future comparisons and evaluations of different interventions that are designed to address these behaviors. The types of behaviors that we're talking about, it's not just interacting with technology. We cover a large number of behaviors. We'll talk about specifics in a minute, but we're looking at all types of secondary behaviors that affect driving performance. This would be anything that diverts attention from the activities that are necessary for safe driving, because those activities that are not primary to that task typically have significant impacts on performance and therefore safety. Another reason that we're really excited about this survey is the pre-survey, we conducted a pilot to test the methodology, to test the tools that were going to be used to collect the data. And actually, 2 of our researchers volunteered to be those people out there on the road doing that for the parties that did the actual study for us. And that was really interesting because they got to see not just the numbers on the back end, but they got to understand better how those numbers are generated. And so that was a really interesting experience for our office and I think valuable for the researchers that got to participate. The survey was conducted from July 27th to August 9th of last year. That was designed to give enough time to cover a couple of weekends as well as weekday traffic, and it was conducted statewide. The methodology that we used is based on the seatbelt use observational survey. So it's a NHTSA approved methodology. It's a proven methodology that can be replicated now anywhere else in the country now that we've done this, because we've used that baseline methodology that we got from NHTSA and have been using for the last several years for seatbelts. There were 201 sites that were selected. Some of them were moving. The majority were sites where traffic was moving. Some of them were where traffic was stationary, because we wanted to see if there was a difference in the prevalence of behaviors at the 2 types of sites. And what we found was there is not. So it's not like more people are grabbing a phone or grabbing a burger or anything else while they're at a stoplight or stop sign than when they're moving. So that was very interesting to note. The types of vehicles that were observed were cars, vans, sport utility vehicles, pickup trucks, and commercial vehicles with less than 10,000 pounds gross vehicle weight. So a broad spectrum of types of vehicles that we see every day on our roadways. There were 4 trained observers that were hired for this study, and a field supervisor that made sure that they were adhering to the protocols and that the data that was being collected was accurate and was being done in the appropriate way. The observations were done between 7 a.m. and 6 p.m. to give us, again, a range of times looking at these various roadways. The start times were staggered so that we could ensure that we would have representative samples from all different types or all different times during the mornings, and to capture different weekday, weekend, rush hour, non-rush hour traffic. The observations were done for 45 minutes per site, and here's our breakdown for the moving and the stopped sites. Again, there were many more moving sites because that actually is the way that the methodology is designed, is to be done for moving sites, but we were able to modify it slightly so that we could be confident that our numbers were good for the stopped sites as well. Again, we used the seatbelt observational study methodology, and here is some of that breakdown to how we the sites were selected. You can see that 51 counties account for the vast majority of passenger vehicle crash-related fatalities. And we get this data from the FARS system, which the FARS analysts are part of our office in traffic safety. So we're very close to that data. And then we're able to use road segment data from our partners at MnDOT to help us determine what segments should be used for the observations. And some people might look at these numbers and say, well, why are you using data from 2007 to 2009 or data from 2010? That's because that's the same data that was used to select the sites for the seatbelt observational survey. And again, we were adhering to the same methodology. So this again is just validating the results that we got because we've been using the same methods for years now. Low response sites were excluded so as not to tip results in any particular direction, as well as road segments with no controlled intersection, because even the ones that were moving, they were sites where there was a controlled intersection perhaps a quarter of a mile further on from where the observation site was. And this was done to, again, reduce any impact that the low response sites might have on the numbers. And again, we talk about our sites between stationary and moving. And again, adhering to that methodology, we looked at different road types. And Hennepin County, I don't know how many people here from Hennepin County, it's where I reside, get our own stratum. Done it. Is that better? In the back? Still hear me? Good? All right. Talking about both high, medium, and low VMT across the state. Again, 3 different road types, primary roads, secondary roads, and local roads, in order to generate data for all roadway types that we see in the state in all various types of usage, from high to low, and of course, Hennepin being their own stratum. As you can see at the bottom of the end column, there were 11,471 vehicles observed. And then we talk about the percent unweighted and percent weighted for distraction. And the reason that we used weighting is, again, because we do that for the seat belts, and that's to make sure that no particular road type or stratum is having a disproportionate impact on the outcome. So, what were we looking for? What were the distractors? First, we were looking for conversation, interaction with both front and backseat passengers, and these were in vehicles where it was clearly identifiable that there were passengers and that there was active conversation going on. We looked for cell phone handling, which could be, picking something up, obviously using one hand for maybe dialing, maybe something else, sometimes using 2 hands, which we don't see a whole lot when you're just dialing. We know probably what people are doing when they're using both hands. Cell phone conversation. How many times was active cell phone conversation observed? What was the prevalence of that? And this would be cases where if somebody had a cell phone in their hand and they could be seen conversing, so they're using the speakerphone function, or most commonly it was cell phone up to the head. We looked at eating behaviors, drinking behaviors, as you'll note later, smoking, reaching for an object, or it could also be reaching for control in the vehicle, interacting with the control console. Pets, this wasn't merely the presence of pets in the vehicle, this is interaction with the animals. So, dog on your lap, or you're reaching behind to pet the dog, or whatever it might be. But so this isn't just we saw something else in the car. And reading, all types of material. There were observations for newspapers, books, you name it. Maps would count in that area as well. Music. Music was counted if people were observed singing along while they were in the vehicle. Guilty as charged. I will have the occasional car concert, as my children will attest to. If there was exceedingly loud music, such that the observers could actually hear it outside the vehicle where they were on the roadside, and actually, in one case, performance. I don't know what the instrument was, but we do have at least one recorded instance of somebody playing a musical instrument while they were driving. I like to imagine it was a tuba, more likely a kazoo or a harmonica, but that's just me. And then personal grooming was also looked for. So what were the results? Well, again, we conducted this over a period from July 27th to August 9th. 11,471 drivers were observed all across the state. And the weighted estimate at the end of the day came to a distraction rate of 29.13%. The good news, the majority of drivers on Minnesota roadways at any given moment are not engaged in distracted behaviors. The bad news is almost 30% of them are at any given moment. And as we will see later in terms of particularly cell phone use, we do have some comparisons that can be made. Minnesota is just as bad as everywhere else in the United States. I know that we're all above average here, but we are not in that regard. When interacting with technology, Minnesota has as big a problem as anybody else. And we can now tell other states, and these are the other problems that we have because we have the data now. We can actually tell them, these are things we know now. We don't just have, well, we think we know this, now we know these things. Looking at distraction by gender and the type engaged in, the ones that stood out to us were males were more likely to be seen handling cell phones, and they were also more likely, far more likely, to be seen conversing with passengers in the back seat. Females, on the other hand, were more than twice as likely to be reaching for something, and this would be other than the control console. So presumably, something in a cup holder, something on the floor, something behind them. But they were more likely to be taking their hand off the wheel and presumably their eyes off the road when reaching for something. They were far more likely to be conversing with a front seat passenger than males were. Apparently, maybe the physical proximity was too close for most guys. They didn't want to, actually engage in conversation as well. Bad enough you have to sit next to somebody. And then the last most interesting thing that we noted in terms of a disparity between the genders was eating. Females were, again, more likely to a significant extent to be seen engaging in eating while driving. And again, we don't really know the whys. We didn't stop these people and ask why they were engaging in these behaviors. But some theories flying around the office were, well, it's probably because, they're the ones that have to drive the kids everywhere, and they're the ones feeding everybody on the go, and so of course you're going to see that. But again, we don't know the whys for any of this. These are just observations. And then the other category, again, that would capture everything: the pets, the grooming, the reading, the music, both the appreciation of and performance of music in that other category. Looking at the behaviors across the days of the week, we have Tuesday being the least distracted day of the week. and Saturday the most. And again, this was done over 2 weekends were encapsulated in that time period that the survey was conducted to get enough data to make this presentation here. So kind of interesting that perhaps we think busy lives, people working, people taking kids to and from school, after school, sports, activities, whatever. Maybe the week would be more distracted, but actually it kind of spikes on a Friday and a Saturday, and then Sunday, Monday kind of comes back down a little bit, but then goes steadily back up. Distracted driving across the hours of the day. 7 to 9 a.m., and this was a little bit of a surprise to some of us in the office, including myself, that 7 to 9 a.m., that morning rush, is actually the time of day where there were the least observed distractions, and then it kind of goes up for the rest of the day, and then it's that evening rush, that 5 to 6 p.m., that we're seeing the most distracted behaviors. So I'd like to have a little bit of a discussion about kind of what these numbers are showing, some more of the numbers that we have, and about distraction in general, to try to make some of what we are talking about here with the data to be relevant to what activities we're engaged in every day, trying to keep people safer. So just to kind of review, 2 big points that I'm sure everybody's aware of. There's, first of all, no such thing as multitasking, as good as we think we might be at that. There's enough cognitive science out there to show that there is merely serial task switching. You might think you're multitasking, but what in fact you're doing is you're doing 2 things worse than you would be doing if you were focusing on one of them at a time. And when one of them is driving, that can have fatal implications. And secondly, again, something I'm sure people are aware of, the distraction falls into 3 main categories: manual, visual, and cognitive. So we're talking about what are we doing with our hands, where are our eyes, and where are our brains? Because even if your eyes are pointed forward, if your brain's otherwise engaged, your performance driving is going to decrease. And so that's a distraction that we need to look at as well. Interestingly enough, when we look at interacting with technology, we get all 3 at the same time. We have people with a device in one hand or 2. We have people looking at a screen, not at the road. And we have people thinking about the messages that they're sending and receiving, or the information they're sending or receiving, rather than thinking about what's the next decision I have to make to be a safe driver. So that's interesting. And there are lingering effects. There's actually a demonstrable hangover effect from interacting with technology and from other distractions, but it's been studied mostly with technology, where you think, well, the tweet's been sent, the text has been responded to, I've updated my Facebook status, I've posted my selfie on Instagram, the phone is down now. I'm no longer distracted. But science actually shows us that for upwards of 30 seconds after you've disengaged from the technology, there's a hangover effect. Your brain still isn't fully re-engaged with the primary task of driving. So that is disturbing as well. And the result of all these distractions can be what's called inattention blindness. That again, you can be looking straight down the road, and you may have a hand on the wheel and think, I'm perfectly in control, I'm a good driver, I'm being very safe right now, and all I'm doing is reaching for a cheeseburger. And the fact of the matter is that even perfectly legal behaviors, even behaviors that people engage in routinely, and the more they engage in them and the fewer bad results they have from them, the more that reinforces that, well, I can do this, of course. I haven't had a crash yet, but it only takes one time. to change their life or to change somebody else's life irreversibly due to a serious injury or with a fatality. So that inattention blindness is something that we need to be aware of. And one of my favorite little bits of information from distraction.gov, because I love NHTSA, is that it takes about 5 seconds to either compose or read a text message. At 55 miles an hour, doing that is the equivalent of driving the length of a football field blindfolded. So when we're in vehicles with people and they're engaging in that behavior, we should say something, because it's not just their safety that's at stake, it's our safety, it's the safety of everybody else in the vehicles around the vehicle that we're in. Because I can't imagine anybody would feel super comfortable getting into a car, looking over and seeing the driver putting on a blindfold and having them say, you know, I'm just going to keep this on for 5 seconds. Is that all right? I think people would speak up if that's what somebody was doing. But I think that there's more reluctance to say something if somebody's like, oh, I'm just checking my Facebook status, or oh, I'm just, you know, texting my kids to tell them I'm going to be running late. So, you know, things to think about here. We then used another NHTSA-approved methodology to extrapolate the data into the number of incidents of these behaviors, so not just percentages. So if we look at the information from DVS, there are approximately 4.56 million registered vehicles in the state of Minnesota of the types that were observed in the study. Under this methodology, we assume that each one is being used for 1 hour during daylight in summer, giving us the largest number of daylight hours. So at any given time, there are approximately 380,000 vehicles on the roads. What does this mean? Well, we're going to start translating that data a little bit here. So what were the biggest distractors, and how does that turn into a number of instances? Well, approximately 30% of all vehicles, so that 11,471, approximately 30% included occupants other than the driver. In those vehicles, active conversation was observed 48.5% of the time. Now, rear seat passengers were in conversation with the driver at a rate of 11.9%. That translates, using that previous methodology, to over 45,000 vehicles at any given moment on the roads where the driver is interacting with the back seat passenger. And again, perfectly legal behavior, but if I'm having what I'm sure is a very even-keeled, reasonable debate with my children in the back seat, my mind is not primarily engaged with the task of safe driving. My eyes might be off the road and in the rearview mirror for an extended period of time while I'm trying to make my point with them. You know, I may or may not be gesticulating with one hand to further make my point. So we're talking about this being the most prevalent behavior that was observed. Conversation with front seat passengers, on the other hand, was only observed in 1.2% of all vehicles, but again, that translates into over 4,500 instances at any given moment. So we're thinking about these things in terms of the numbers and of time, because I might be having a conversation with my front seat passenger, but that might not be taking a half an hour. That might be very brief. But during that time that I'm engaged with them, again, I'm diverting my attention, at least in part, away from the primary task of safe driving. Cell phone handling. This is the handling that we talked about earlier, the manipulation of a device with one or both hands. That was observed in 4.8% of all vehicles. Some people might think, well, 4.8%, that's not bad. But when you talk about numbers, that's over 18,000 vehicles at any given moment on Minnesota's roadways where people are handling these devices. And again, it doesn't have to take very long, but it can have fatal consequences. And again, we're no better than anybody else in the nation. We're right up there with every other state where there have been observational studies done of cell phone use. And other states have only done cell phone use. Nobody has done and used the approach that we have of looking at all distractor types. So that's our number right there for cell phone handling. Couple that with cell phone calls, the rates that we saw there was 4.4% of all vehicles had active calls going on. That's almost 17,000 vehicles. So we're talking about, at any given moment on Minnesota roadways, 35,000 vehicles where there are people that are engaged with cell phone use, either handling or a call. And again, the various types of distractors that are involved: manual, visual, cognitive, and the hangover effects that can be experienced from that. It's taking attention off the road where it should be. These, again, the cell phone use or handling and cell phone calls, the second and third most prevalent distractors that we saw. And looking at that handling percentage, again, another thing to think about, that statistic I gave earlier, it only takes about 5 seconds to compose or read a text message. So you have an observer standing by the side of the road, and they're seeing somebody handling a cell phone as they're going by. Now, this wasn't, zipping by at 80 miles an hour or anything, but they were able to observe in 4.8% of all vehicles somebody handling a cell phone. And they caught them, if they're texting, during that 5-second window. That's not a lot of time to catch somebody engaged in that type of behavior. But we saw it, and you extrapolate that, it's over 18,000 vehicles at any given time people are handling their cell phones. So that was another interesting tidbit that we were able to extract from this, is that even though you have a small window to observe the behavior, you're still seeing it at that rate. And then the remaining distractions, I didn't bother breaking these down, doing the math on them in terms of the numbers. I'm sure everybody can multiply a percentage by 380,000 and come up with the number of vehicles at any given moment. But by rate of prevalence, it would be eating, smoking, reaching for an unspecified object, or reaching for vehicle control, drinking, and then the other category, where we capture the pets, the grooming, the music. These are the things that people are doing on Minnesota roads other than focusing on being safe drivers. Looking a little bit more at the demographic data, male drivers were more likely to be distracted than female drivers, 30.2% versus 27.6%. Teen and young adult drivers, and this would be the age category of 16 through 29, were the most likely to be distracted. So again, we have our, at the lower end of that range, least experienced drivers being part of the demographic that's the most distracted, disturbing. And interestingly enough, drivers of vans and minivans were the most likely to be distracted by vehicle type. Again, this might be parents shuttling around children going to and from work, but that's the type of vehicle that had the most observations of distracted behaviors going on inside. Pickup truck drivers were next, then SUVs, and passenger cars were below that, and the very last category would be the commercial vehicles of under 10,000 pounds gross vehicle weight. Something that's very interesting here as well was what was observed was that drivers on local roads were less likely to be distracted than those on secondary roads or primary roads. The scary thing here is, as speed and congestion increase, you're going from local to secondary to primary, the instance of distraction is increasing rather than decreasing. So, it's just physics. It's the law we all have to obey. You're going faster, you're closer to somebody, you're distracted, greater prevalence, greater odds of something bad happening, and higher speed means something bad happening is going to have more likely a worse outcome. So that was a little disturbing to see, was that as congestion goes up and speed goes up, distraction goes up as well. Looking at the 7-county metro area, the rate of distraction was about 31% there, 30.9%. And then the rate in the rest of Minnesota was 27.5%. And again, remember, we did use weighted numbers to make sure that we were comparing apples to apples, just like we do with the seatbelt survey. And so that's what we were seeing, is that they're close, but there is a higher incidence of distracted behaviors in the metro area. And then, of course, we have our statewide rate of 29.13%. And if we take all of those behaviors together and then apply that methodology to give us a number of instances at any given moment, that's almost 111,000 vehicles at any given moment where the drivers are engaged in distracted behavior, where the drivers do not have their full attention on the primary task of making sure that they and their passengers and everybody else around them gets from point A to point B in one piece. And that changes moment by moment, distraction by distraction, decision by decision. But at any given moment, 111,000 drivers are making a decision that they're good enough and they're safe enough that they can do something like driving, which is a very complex task, plus something else. And as we discussed earlier, multitasking doesn't exist. When you're doing serial task switching, you're merely doing two things worse than you would do than if you had focused on them one at a time. So, a little food for thought there. And that's it.
Well, we're going to open it up for questions. And I have a feeling there's probably several questions out in the group. So, as I mentioned, we're going to pass this around. And then please introduce yourself and where you're from. We'll start with Karen.
Thanks, Mike. That was really an excellent presentation. Karen Spratler with the Spratler Group. When you looked at the different types of distraction over the days of the week, did you notice a variation in the type of distraction versus a weekday or a weekend?
I'm sure that that data exists, but it wasn't teased out in the report that we were given. But obviously we can go back and look at that. Much like we see different rates of distraction at different times of day, different days of the week, it wouldn't surprise me to see different types of distraction being more prevalent at certain times of the day or certain days of the week as well.
I was involved in a NHTSA project where we were doing observational measures of cell phone use, and we found that weekend cell phone use actually was lower than during the week. And so I was just kind of curious because as your numbers went up, if that had a different type of distraction that was...
That would be interesting. I mean, maybe more people are eating and drinking or conversing on the weekends than they are during the week. That would be a good follow-up for us to do.
Thanks.
Hi, Nancy Johnson, Minnesotans for Safe Driving. I had a couple questions. Probably everybody else knows this, but I don't. What's the difference between weighted and non-weighted?
Well, the unweighted would be just the actual number of each type of observation. The weighted observations, and again, I'm not a statistician. We had a very fine one, Dr. Larry Cook at the University of Utah, who is nationally known for this. He looks at this kind of data all the time. So I'm the guy that gets to talk about the numbers. I don't necessarily make them. And then the weighted percentages would be where you factor in, you assign different weights to each different type of roadway, each in that stratum that we showed earlier in that table. Let's see here. Right here. So you, the top one, Hennepin County, primary roads in Hennepin County. There were 2,507 vehicles observed on primary roads in Hennepin County for this study. Unweighted percentage distracted behaviors, if you just took that number and the number of observations of those behaviors was 27.12%, but when you add in a weight to help, so you're comparing apples to apples, you're comparing, a local roadway in, I don't know, Winona County versus Hennepin County. Then you actually see that the rate, the prevalence is higher. It's 33.09%. But you just assign a weight to make sure that you're comparing apples to apples.
The numbers that you had in percentage, those different percentages of each one didn't add up to 29.13, or is it the weighted?
Well, if you look, the weighted percentage overall, it doesn't add up to, but that's what the overall rate across the state, across the types of roadways. And again, this is exactly the same way that we calculate seatbelt use in the state. That comes out to that 29.13%, as you can see there.
I was quite surprised that the cell phone handling was less than the cell phone, because I was under the impression people were doing more texting than they were doing cell phone.
Actually, cell phone handling was higher than cell phone conversation.
Oh, okay.
Yep, cell phone handling was 4.75%. I took some license and rounded it up to 4.8 for the presentation, but the actual number is 4.75, and cell phone conversation is 4.4%. So actually handling is higher.
Hi, thank you very much for that wonderful presentation. Ann White with the St. Paul Walks, specifically pedestrian safety campaign. Last summer, we did education and enforcement at 16 different locations, and we found the police officers, when they cited people for not stopping at a crosswalk for a pedestrian trying to cross, more than 50% of them said they did not see the pedestrian in the crosswalk, which would seem to be evidence, though soft evidence, of being distracted, not noticing the pedestrian. Do you have, and I suspect that the numbers may be different in the cities as opposed to suburban areas. Do you have a way of breaking out your data to identify the data in the cities, the Twin Cities, as compared to the suburban area around it?
I'm sure that we can. Sure.
The individual numbers of observations in a city would be too small to make a meaningful statement on that.
So can we do more observations to get that data?
Time and money, yeah, time and money.
That's the challenge.
I wanted to point out too, when the number's not adding to the weight, people can be distracted by more than one thing, so.
More questions? Oh, you have Nicole. This is gonna be a tough one.
Right?
I know you wanted
Be
a
kind.
question from me. Nicole Morris, Human First, University of Minnesota. So I have so many questions. I will try to keep them limited. So one thing I just wanted to point out, just a comment, that when you look at the federal rates of distracted fatal crashes, the leading type of distracted crash is not included in your list. And it's something that you would not be able to observe, which is lost in thought. So I just wanted to point out that that's a really major killer on our roadways, is lost in thought, and we would have no way of knowing it. So I just wanted to say, likely the number's much higher, and it's torture to be just not thinking. So everyone's probably distracted in some way, unfortunately. My question was, when you had people potentially singing alone, did you try to match that to trying to hear music, to know that they're singing? Were you looking for rhythm in what they were doing? 'Cause I'm wondering about,
Sure,
driverless.
versus, well, first of all, you could tend to eliminate conversation because they would be alone
Right.
in the vehicle. Additionally, you might see movement,
Sure.
a little dance while singing at the same time. And again, it was assumed that unless somebody saw like a Bluetooth earpiece and somebody's lips moving, then that would be assigned to cell phone conversation. Whether it was or not, maybe they're not actively engaged in a call at that point, but again, the time window for these observations. So yeah, there were attempts to be very discriminating about separating the types of behaviors, but yes, it's very possible that a cell phone conversation or two, maybe it was particularly animated, was being done hands-free with no evidence of a cell phone at all, got interpreted as singing,
Sure.
Or vice versa.
Right, okay, great. And thank you for the work, I appreciate it.
No, she's at the office.
I'm pretty sure Mike knows me. He's my boss. Danelle Wilbraham, Office of Traffic Safety, only been there a month. But I've been a cognitive scientist for a long time. And so I had two questions. One was already hinted at, which is how did you deal with multiple distractions at the same time? Are those counted, both counted?
Yes.
And
Each
is
type
there
of
any
distraction
way-
was noted. The observers all had iPads that had electronic forms on them, so they could tick multiple causes of distraction at any given time for each vehicle. They didn't just go, oh, I see singing. I see singing, I see reaching for something, I see drinking. They could record multiple.
And then I suppose I should say, did we analyze that to see what proportion of drivers were engaged in multiple distracting behaviors?
I don't know. Again, the data exist, so I'm sure that could be done.
So I believe the study did not pull out how many people were distracted with multiple distractions versus one, but that overall rate is the number of people distracted regardless of how many distractions it was. So we didn't count, not me, I didn't do this one, but we didn't count a person who was distracted by two things twice. They were only counted once.
I'm Vijay Dixit from Shreya Dixit Foundation. I have a couple of questions which probably are related. Did you do any observation on bad weather versus good weather? I know you did it in summer. Looks like there was no snow. And so like very bad weather like hurricanes and rains and on a good sunny day.
Whatever the weather was from July 27th to August 9th, that's what we got. We can't control it. We can't account for it. We can't have 4 observers on standby. It's snowing. Get out there now. You don't get a scientific sample doing that. So no, we don't have any control for that.
Right. And the second is that you said cell phone handling. Yes. But there are some Bluetooth type of cell phones and there are the hand. How did you distinguish or differentiate between the two?
Well, cell phone handling is just cell phone handling. We had to see something in somebody's hand, and they were manipulating it. Okay, if they have a Bluetooth device and again we could note conversation. Again, if the Bluetooth device is seen,
Yes.
and somebody's lips are moving, that was noted as a cell phone conversation.
Sure.
If there was no Bluetooth device seen, it could have been noted potentially as singing. But yes, you're absolutely right. But we did try to account for that.
You did. Thank you.
Okay, we have, here, Katie?
Hi, Carol Falkowski, Drug Abuse Dialogues. And I just was wondering, of the 2% of observations that involve smoking, do you have any comments, even anecdotal, from the observers about instances in which something other than a cigarette might have been being smoked?
I don't believe that they went into, was somebody vaping? Did somebody have a
Giant
pipe
plug?
or, yeah, right. It was, yeah, all encapsulated in smoking. Because again, we're talking about, short windows for these observations, and they have to find the right place to tick their electronic form. And granted, having these tools that we've developed over time now, it really speeds up the data collection, makes it much more accurate, much more easy to, much easier to clean the data. So yeah, but we didn't account for that, no.
Thanks, Mike. Great conversation and discussion. Thank you so much. Mark Kindy, State Health Department. Two comments and then one question. The one from your very last slide, very comforting about the lowest distraction rate being in my local neighborhood. So I'm comforted by that. Safest as a pedestrian and bicyclist, hopefully, on my local neighborhood roads. And then to Brother Vijay's question, I think we could take your data and cross-tab it from the NOA and look at any contrasts or comparisons or connections with the climatic conditions for over that time period, and that'd be an interesting subsequent study. The question is that on your last slide, that lower left dot, and I look to our cognitive scientists or our law enforcement folks, I just don't understand the speed and congestion increase directly corresponding to the increase in prevalence of distraction. And it just seems so counterintuitive. And so I wonder, I'm looking for help from the congregation here.
Yeah, that's why it was scary. People are making choices to do things other than drive as the speeds get higher and the roads get more congested. That's our data right there. Yeah, it was disturbing to see that.
I'm Lauren Hill. My conjecture on that, Mark, is that they're on a long trip and they're going fast, and they're farther from home on a local street. This is just my guess. My question is, you answered the part, you only count it once, but if there are 5, which bin do you put it in? Kathleen has an answer.
She'll save me yet again.
So they would show up in in each of the distractions as part of that. So 11% of drivers were doing this and 10% of drivers were doing that. And you're in both of those groups, but that overall rate, you're only counted once.
Great. We have time, so.
Thank you very much, John Reilly, AARP Driver Safety in Minnesota. It's just a methodology question, and I'm not a methodologist, so I'm probably not asking the question correctly. But on the human side of the observers, they observed for 45 minutes in one place. Now, they clearly didn't observe every car as it went by. How do they make those choices, and how does that affect, the results?
Well, they do make choices. There's a methodology about, it's every whatever vehicle, and I don't have the number at the forefront of my mind right now.
It's in the report.
But it'll be in the report. And the way that it affects the overall numbers is that it makes them better. It's a more accurate way than trying to get somebody, okay, especially on high VMT, high usage roads, to try to capture all vehicles at once. There you're asking for really poor performance on the part of the observer as they're trying to collect everything all the time. That's why there is that spacing to allow for the collection of accurate data. So it actually makes the data better overall.
Nancy Johnson, Minnesota for Safe Driving. Primary and secondary roads, those freeways are not part of it, correct?
Correct. Now, we did have, some of the moving sites were actually off-ramps, highway off-ramps. So there would be people that were coming off of a highway. But no, we did not have, observers stationed on the shoulder of 35E.
What would be a typical primary road? State highway?
Yeah.
Okay. And then the other thing is, when will this be on, that you can get the whole report? Online or on whatever?
You can do that right now. It's online at our website, the Office of Traffic Safety, dps.ots.
What is it?
Dot
What would you list it on?
mn.gov, I think. I just click a button and it goes right there. I don't have to type in the address.
What would it be called?
Microphone, but under reports and statistics, about what's up on the top menu.
Okay.
It's over on there.
John, I just wanted to comment on your question again. The thing that Mike was pointing out is that it wasn't left up to the observer to choose. There was a methodology for which vehicles they chose.
Gordy Pearson with the Office of Traffic Safety. Mike, was anything related to age as far as the observations go?
Yes, there were, let's see here. We did, the lower left-hand bullet, teen and young adult drivers. So data was collected by age demographic as well, and that's in the report. Distraction type by age.
I was just going to say, on the website, it's just the Office of Traffic Safety website, there's a reports and statistics, and then this is the high-risk driver analysis, is that correct?
No.
Distracted driving.
No, that's a separate
Oh,
study.
so that's not,
Not on there, it'll be on there.
Oh, yeah, I'll be talking to people when I get back to the office if it's not.
it was not under the reports and statistics. Just-
It should be, did you look at on the right, on the right?
Oh,
We'll get it on.
Okay.
It should be on there. It's supposed to be on before we,
what's it called again?
it's a Minnesota driver distraction. I don't know the exact name, but Minnesota driver distraction.
Yeah, it is called, hang on a second, I have a copy of it here with me. The Minnesota Distracted Driving Survey 2015.
Ann White again, from St. Paul. I have a question about how this, any of this information will be reported on the new MinCrash data input. I guess that's for Nicole.
Well, Kathleen!
So we have a new crash record system that went live January 1st. And under the contributing factors, we will have both the distracted, inattentive that we've always had, and then we also have a separate field for what distraction was it. So we will be able to calculate those going forward.
Any other questions? Mike, you're
Good,
on.
get out of here, thank you.
Good job.